People watchers of Reddit, what is the weirdest thing you have observed somebody doing in public? Working in a nightclub has proven to provide for some fascinating people watching, but one will forever stand out to me. I work the lights, and I'm in a windowed booth with regular glass, nothing one way. The night is moving along with its usual pace, drinks, brothers, far too drunk girls, when suddenly this little dude wanders in front of my window. Alright, whatever, people come and look at me like a fish in a tank, nothing abnormal. He then proceeds to press his face against the glass, quite hard actually, and lick the booth window. He's looking at me, but not at the same time, and at this point I'm getting uncomfortable. So I step up to look over the window and ask the guy if he's alright, and he looks up at me in shock. When I peek over, I ask, "You alright there, man?" To which he replies, "Whoa man, I thought you were my reflection," and then proceeded to walk away. Needless to say, whatever he was on, I want no part of. Weirdest. I was at prom. The guy leans in for the kiss. The girl turns around and says, "I fart in your general direction," and walks away. The guy just stares. Funniest. I was at a tea shop where they sell pearl milk tea, which is black tea with some sort of non-dairy creamer and black tapioca pearls. I highly recommend it. Anyway, they seal the cup of tea with a plastic label thingy as seen in the picture. Some guy was bragging to his friends about how strong the seals were, so he upturned the pearl milk tea above his head. After a couple seconds, the seal broke, and he poured tea all over his face. While in a pizza shop, I witnessed a very shaggy homeless man furiously yelling at, and eventually trying to punch, the fucking sun. Was at a coffee shop in Seattle. Old homeless guy walks in, drops his pants, and starts violently masturbating right in the middle of the room. A barista kindly escorted him into the bathroom to finish his business. I'll never forget the smacking sound. Smack 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 smack. TL. Dr. White family gets attacked by a herd of Asians with cameras attempting to take pictures of, and with the locals. I was sitting on a bench in Balboa Park, San Diego, and eating a snack when a large group of Asians come by walking in a sort of line, each of them with their own camera snapping pictures of everything. At the end of the street is a woman at a cart talking about how you can pay $28 a month and feed a small starving child somewhere in Africa. A husband and wife had just walked up to the cart, with their 4 kids chasing each other around, and pulling goldfish crackers out of a bag. The herd of Asians is making their way up the street, cameras flashing and clicking away, as the family awkwardly says no thanks to the cart lady and heads down the walkway, heading towards the 30 or so Asians that were now pointing at the family and saying quick things. Suddenly, a man pulls away from the group and gets in a stance sort of like this. He points his camera at the family, says something in a language that I don't understand, and suddenly all hell breaks loose on this street. The herd of Asians surrounds the family like a pack of animals on the hunt, and they can see there's no escape. The woman is holding on to her small child, who is about to freak out. Then, the circle breaks and the pack goes in for the kill, tearing the family from one another and taking pictures of each person, then motioning small groups together to take pictures with the locals. At this point the oldest child, a boy, probably 12, and his father had run to a safe distance and were staring in awe at what was happening to the rest of their family. The man that had first taken a picture of the White family was now pointing his camera at the woman, who was looking around frantically and doing a head count to see if her children hadn't been taken. The man snapped a photo, looked down at the camera, and uttered the loudest ugh I've ever heard. The woman slaps the Asian man, which triggers some sort of flight mechanism in the rest, and they take off down the street, some still snapping photos as they flee Momzilla and her kids. The 2 kids that had separated from the group earlier ran over to the others to see that they were safe, which in fact they now were. They gathered their senses and continued walking down the street towards the children's museum. One time I saw a guy at Burger King. It was breakfast, and he was alone. He had just sat down at his booth with what I will label as one metric fucked in a BKBKFST. As I watched, he actually did the fat guy oh boy ma eat all his tweedly fingers before diving into his meal. Made my day. I just love when you're watching someone and they do something really fucking weird, and then the next moment you notice that another person witnessed the same thing and you just lock eyes and mouth, what the fuck? I see a guy at McDonald's every week order a Big Mac. He then sits down, opens it up and carefully disassembles it. He discards everything that isn't bread or meat. He then takes a knife and scrapes the sauce off the buns and meat. Then he reassembles the bun and meat into a burger, cuts it into quarters and eats it. I was in London, just outside Buckingham Palace, and I spotted what I'll call a herd of Asians walking in a straight line, one behind the other, being led by the herd leader who was holding a tall stick with what looked like mistletoe tied to the top, assumingly to be easily spotted if one of them got separated from the herd. It's perhaps not the strangest thing a group of people could be doing in public, but I'd never seen anything like it before. In Walmart, this stereotypical obese white trash redneck in a wife beater was standing in front of the potatoes yelling into his phone. Tatters. Do we need tatters? No. Tatters. Taters. Tatters. Do we need tatters? So I was eating with my family at a semi-upscale restaurant in the Mexico Pavilion at Epcot Center, Disney World. Basically, it's in this building that's designed to look like the outside courtyard of Mexican town by a river. Across from the river is a fake ancient Mexican temple and a fake volcano that erupts every so often. It's supposed to be nighttime, so the white cloth tables are lit by candlelight. It's about $20 or more a plate. It isn't as cheesy as it sounds. Are you with me? Okay. So about halfway through my appetizer, I notice this family about 10 feet away from me. It's a mom, a father and maybe 4 or 5 sons. The reason I can't remember how many sons is because, although on closer inspection I noticed they were different sizes, they all were dressed the same. Cargo shorts, blue striped shirt, and matching sneakers. But what really made them look alike to me was the fact that they were all identically shaved bald. I could tell that they were bald by choice and not circumstance, as they had about 1/16 of a 5 o'clock shadow growing all over their skulls. This, paired with their clothes, gave them the appearance of being a collection of little tiny middle-aged balding dads of varying and miniature stature. Got that? Okay. A few minutes later, after their food arrives, I see the mom pull out a giant white jawbreaker on a stick. She gives it to the tallest son. He begins to suck it. He sticks his tongue out of his mouth, runs it up and down like a vacuum on carpet, dangles it above his head, dips it in his face hole, like he's tapping for oil, loudly sucks his candied saliva from the base of the bowl, etc. I turn to my sister and say, "Wow, that's gross." She nods in agreement. We continue to eat our fish tacos. Out of the corner of my eye, I see the tallest son hand the jawbreaker to the next son. He begins to handle it in much the same way. It's in his mouth. It's out of his mouth. He's swinging it around like a mace. Look at his form, judges. What innovation. What creativity. I turn to my sister, point it out and say, "Yuck." She nods in agreement. As I and my family continue eating both actual food and actual food that remains inside of our mouths, the lollipop gets passed around. It makes its way through all the sons, and a few times at that. As my family asks for the check, I see something out of the corner of my eye. I could not be seeing what I think I'm seeing. I refuse to accept that my eyes are telling me the truth. I reject this truth. Here's what I refuse to believe happened next. I see the mom, mid-30s, reasonably put together, looks like she leads their Catholic homeschool play dates with educational coloring activities, etc. I see the mom take the still huge, still polished white jawbreaker on a now dampened stick from her youngest. I see this adult woman look this candy in the eye. She observes it. She evaluates its soul. She listens to its secrets like a quiet monk. She puts it in her mouth. And then, and it can only be described this way, she summons the sexual power of the Aztec goddess Xochiquetzal, and she fucks it. Right in the middle of the fucking restaurant, in fucking Disney World in front of my fucking face. She fucking orally fucks a children's novelty suite. She fucking works to satisfy that lollipop that her sons just drooled all fucking over. When she was done, I kept expecting the jawbreaker to grow arms and light a cigarette. Never in my life have I ever seen anything so publicly explicit. Not masturbating homeless men, not overzealous grinding at the club, not even literal actual for real public fellatio. I tune to my sister. I say, "Holy fucking shit, check out this motherfucking disgusting bitch. Have you ever fucking even seen someone so egregious?" She nods in agreement. take a bloody tampon out, put it behind a package of maxi pads, and opened a box of tampons, and took a fresh one out, then pushed the box back in its place. She was wearing a dress, so she thought it would look like she was fixing the bottom of the dress, but I saw it clearly. I was waiting to cross the street once, and a guy in a truck drove past on the street. He was eating corn on the cob while driving. I thought that was a pretty weird in the car food choice. I was in a bookstore and kept hearing a click, click, click around the corner. I suspected what it was and thought no, surely not. Walked around and there he was, some old man standing there clipping his nails while he looked at books. You fucking disgusting old bastard. Somebody has to clean that shit up. On a public bus, a guy dressed in a robe with a hiking stick / wizard staff muttering to himself and making circular hand motions. I'm pretty sure it was a spell of warding, and we all owe him our lives for protecting the bus. At Plymouth train station in the UK, I saw a man walking very deliberately and extremely awkwardly with one large pace after another, legs locked at the knees, very gradually speeding up. Then, he would go behind a pillar, and when he emerged the other side he would be walking slowly again. Then speed up. All the way down the platform he did this. I wondered if maybe he was doing some sort of physiotherapy, except once he reached the end of the platform, he just walked perfectly normally back to the exit and left. I've wondered what the hell he was doing ever since. I saw an old homeless man buy 3 bottles of beer, walk to the train station across the street, and pour all 3 beers down a small drain on the train platform. He was talking to himself the whole time. Once he was done, he put the 3 empties in the bin and walked off down the street. For those of you who don't know what Golden Corral is, it's the chain of all-you-can-eat restaurants that's pretty much the Walmart of eateries. Anyway, locked eyes with a dude in a GC who then proceeded to vomit all over the floor, wipe himself off, and then walk out of the restaurant as if nothing happened. I can certainly elaborate if anyone wants, but there you have it. I had been forced to go to church for Christmas and the guy in front of me starts panicking big time. He was middle-aged guy with a weird beard, no joke. While I was kneeling he pulls down the back of his pants, puts the lyric sheet for the hymns on the seats and squeezes out a decent sized shit no further than half a meter from my face. I felt so sick and we left. Dude must have loved Jesus so hard he didn't want to miss anything. He just picked up the paper, folded it like a present and either put it in his pocket or in front of him. The smell and the hairiest crack still haunts me today. Not me, but my mother told me this story. My cousins were visiting from out of state for a week. My mom decided to take them to our mall one day. In the new section of the mall, there's this rope course thing as an activity people can do. My mother convinced my youngest brother and one of my cousin to complete the course. My other cousin decided to back out, so my mom sat nearby with him while my uncle waited for the other 2 to finish the course. My male cousin is very shy and introverted and has taken up the hobby of yo-yoing. He is quite good, and he tends to spontaneously break out this yo-yo, which he did while he and my mom were waiting. Suddenly, my mom realizes they are not alone. A group of about 25 Asian kids around the age of 19 have gathered to watch. My uncle soon comes over and calls my cousin to go to a different store with him. My cousin turns to this crowd that has gathered and says, "I'm sorry, I have to go now." The group then begins bowing to him and dispersed when he left without a single word the entire time. The people who cut across major thoroughfares when there is a lot of traffic. It's not rare, it happens pretty regularly where I live, but it's weird as hell to me. You're going to put your life and the lives of others in danger, so you don't have to walk 20 yards to a crosswalk, or wait 20 seconds till traffic eases up. Seriously? My husband and I were sitting in a waiting area in a glass shop in Toledo. One day, we had cracked our windshield while on a road trip and had to pull off to get it replaced. The window faced a main road, and we watched a homeless guy eat 8 cold dollar store hot dogs, one by one, while sitting on the side of the road and talking to invisible people. Full-on conversations, hand motions and all with nobody. On the beach in the south of France, a middle-aged couple was sunbathing when all of a sudden they gave each other a little nod and stood up. The man lit a cigarette and grabbed a bucket to fill it with shells. The woman started arranging pebbles next to where their towel was. They worked at it for a while, the man collecting bits and bobs and placing them next to the woman's sculpture. This lasted for about 10 minutes and they worked in complete silence the whole time. After that, the man lit another cigarette, stood with his hands on his hips, and gave one last approving nod at their creation. Then, just like that, they packed up and left. I went to see what they'd made, and it looked like some kind of deformed shrine. A nice enough arrangement of pebbles, shells, and seaweed, but I couldn't tell you what it was supposed to represent. I usually like to go to the mall to people watch, as it's where the most interesting people tend to gather. I was sitting on one of the benches eating a pretzel in an open area, between a Sears and a Claire's, when I spotted a very large peculiar woman. She was wearing black sweatpants, and what appeared to be a carpet cut into a poncho. I watched her make her way over to the garbage, and do something I wish I never saw. She, very uncomfortably, shoved her hand down the back of her sweatpants, and fished out a big juicy handful of wet shit. She plopped it into the garbage, and wiped off her hand on the inside of her carpet poncho. She then waddled over into the Claire's, and started picking earrings and things off the shelves with the same hand she had shoveled shit with a minute earlier. I couldn't finish my pretzel.